Welcome to the Comic Creator tutorial. This is a complex tool, so we'll try and go through some of the basics of how to create a panel sequence, load up a comic again and edit on it. So first we'll just open up the timeline so we'll have some idea where we are in the timeline for the video, and then we'll open up the Comic Creator. So if we look at the Create menu, you'll see there's Comic Creator, and if we open that, then we'll get this particular interface for the first time we create a comic. So this has at the top, you can see a date and a timestamp for when I'm making this now. I'm just going to keep this roughly about here, and we're going to try and capture something about what's going on. We're just starting off with one panel, and then we'll be adding some more panels. And in those panels, which have cameras attached to them, so you can see this first panel that's been created is at frame 2. We're currently at frame 2. And it has a camera, and if I move that camera and grab it and move it, you'll see it gives us a shot on the 360 video. And then we can add things like captions and speech bubbles and text in those. So we're gonna show that first, and then we're gonna add some more panels to make up a longer sequence. And what we're interested in is maybe as he does a countdown, and then one participant here, P2, starts running. So we're going to try and capture that. So let's just play a little bit.
Og så, når jeg siger go, så starter vi.
So he's just setting up there the start point.
Er I klar?
So he says, are you ready? And he's going to be doing the 3, 2, 1, go countdown. So what we could do here, you notice it says update frame. It's now in orange because this is set at frame 2. But as we're currently selected this one, we're now at frame 139. So if we update, the frame number is updated for what this new camera position is. So we could get a nice shot just here. And he's about to say, let's just hear.
3, 2.
So there he's doing the countdown. So let's just go back a few frames. Hear that?
Er I klar?
So here he's just turning. We could do here a nice caption. So if we add a caption here at the top, we can grab that and stick it at the bottom or stick it at the top. There's 2 positions for a caption, and we get a keyboard. And we can move this keyboard wherever we want. I'll put it over here so it's out of the way. And he's about to say 3, 2, 1, go. But we could maybe add something just before this, that countdown is about to begin. So R2 does a countdown, and R2 is this researcher, or R1 is this researcher here. So let's say R1 starts count down. Okay, and we'll add just a few dots there. So R1 starts countdown. We'll close that. So there's our first caption, and then he's going to start now. So we find a nice shot for us, as if we're going to add more panels to this, but we're going to do that in a moment. So there we could add a speech bubble, for example, if we wanted to add a speech bubble here. So there is a speech bubble. And that speech bubble, if you use the trigger and you point, you can grab it and move it around any way you want. Not only that, you can also change the tail length. So you see the length of the tail is increasing, and also it's positioned roughly in a sort of clock setting of sort of 12 different quadrants. So let's say it was something he was going to say, which we're going to add in a new panel, and then we could add text there, and then we can move that around. We can edit this. But if we select that one, we can also delete it, and there it is gone. So we can add something, select it, and delete it if we want. We can erase the text that we have. We can open up the keyboard to begin editing if we closed it accidentally. And that's the first panel that we've created. So let's just leave it with one small caption. And then we're going to add now a speech bubble for when he says 3, 2, 1, go, coming up in a next panel here. Just before we go on to do that, just note that we can remove panels, and we can also export images. So once we've got a nice sequence here, then we can export to disk. This comic is actually saved, and we can show that if I close this and close. Now we have lost we can actually go back to the comic creator here, and we could open it up this way, but also, which I'll do, is we can go to the import menu, look for comics, and there we have a comic which we can open. And if I click that, we'll get the same comic opened up again, and there's the caption at the top. So let's proceed to see how we can add new panels to make a larger sequence. We have these buttons at the top. We can insert a panel before or a panel after. Let's just move on a little bit in the video to insert a panel after with a slightly larger frame number, and then we'll add a speech bubble. So he's not yet said it, and there he started to say 3, 2, 1. So we could add a new panel after. That now has the new frame number 187, which is where we're at, and that's where we could just move this a little bit there, so we can move the camera to a new position for this current panel. We could add a speech bubble and maybe move that speech bubble down here, change the tail direction, change the length. There, that sort of looks like it's coming from him, and then we could erase all the text and then put the numbers 3 space 2 space 1 space and then go and dot dot dot. Maybe we don't need, we can erase that by pressing the erase key rather than erase all. We'll close the keyboard. We can close it from here as well. So we have 3, 2, 1, go, and we can edit that. We can maybe move it a little bit closer there. So we can go back to a previous panel. We've gone back to the previous one. We could adjust that one. We can go back to this one. You can see it's highlighted. And now we'll see when she starts to run, and we'll add one more panel. So let's just play.
Go.
And there, she's just started to run. Now we need to, if we just move this a little here, we need to add a new panel. There's the panel after. Move the camera, maybe to get a shot there. Would be a nice one. We've got all 3 and we've got her clearly running. And then we could add another caption, which we could put at the bottom this time. And in that caption we'll say P2 runs. And maybe dot dot dot. It's an ongoing activity. Notice there I missed out a space, so we could always go back, open the keyboard. I could erase all, or I could just go back from the end. Didn't get a space there. It's not a perfect system for editing, but you can still manage with a very short, nice text inside speech bubbles and captions. So our P2 runs, and that's our third one. So now we have a sequence emerging, which is temporally, you can see 139, 187, 234 in terms of frame numbers. And we could add another panel, for example, after, but we might not want that one, so we can remove it. And it says, do you really want to? Yep, we've removed that one. And you can insert the panel before a particular panel, so you can start to, maybe you miss something and or you need to have a bit more detail between 2 panels. You can add one before the second one in sequence. When you export to disk, what will happen is this, if I press this now, it will export that to disk, which will have the particular date and the time, as well as the frame number and the panel number stored in the file name. So you'll know exactly where that frame was taken. And of course you can edit this later just by closing the panel, the comic, and then starting it by importing it again and edit it at a later time. But you can also hard code all of that into real images that you can insert into a document for publication, for example. Okay, so there we've got a nice panel emerging, and I think that's enough to show off the features. There are some little tricks you can also do in for example, putting a drawing or something like that, which would appear inside the panel and animate that as well. You can also have a 2D video or a 360 and then move into another sphere and then take a shot at that point, so that you would have from very, very different 360 cameras different parts of the panel. So the little tricks you can do just to build up a much more complex panel sequence if you want to. So remember that every change that you make will be stored automatically to disk. So when you load it up the next time, that is the current version. You don't have to save it, but you do have to press this button, export to images, to get it onto disk. That is not as a manual action, whereas saving is just done automatically, so you don't lose anything. That's the basics of creating a comic panel sequence. You could also create a new sequence. So if I click this button, then this would be saved, and I would open up a new brand new sequence with one camera, and I could build up that. So I could actually build up a page after page after page of a comic panel sequence to describe some particular action or activity going on in the video. That's sort of a nice complex tool, lots of possibilities. please give it a go in once this vocab is finished.